Greetings. Welcome to the Equity.Guru Investor Roundtable. I'm at a sports venue for good reason today. We're talking about esports, online wagering, the sector that is, the growth, modern technology. I'm Rob in the corner. Over there is Galen down in the basement. I don't know what he's got. He's got a still over there. He's making some whiskey. Shell up there in the corner. And in the penthouse, the guru himself, Chris Perry, right yonder. And he's going to tee it up. We're talking Amped, i3 Interactive, GameOn Entertainment Technologies, FansUnite, and the sector. CP?
Oof, there's a lot there. All right, so remember back in the day when blockchain was a thing for a hot minute and every broker in town was putting together a blockchain deal? And then a week later, everyone sort of realized that blockchain needed to be with something else, and then it died. And then everyone was like, hey, but esports is a thing. My kid's watching a lot of people on Twitch, so everyone suddenly had an esports deal without actually thinking, well, how can we make that some money? And then once we realized that esports needed to be with something else, like, a platform to stream from or some sort of business model that wasn't just giving money to teenagers to play Call of Duty, that all shut the bed. And so here we are back in the same rotation again with sports betting. Sports betting has erupted across the world. What was once the Provence of Russian mafioso putting together fake poker sites and entrepreneurs from Vancouver being chased all around the Caribbean by the feds is now a regulated thing. You can now place your bets on whether Mo Salah will pretend to be fouled in the penalty box in the 10th minute or the 15th minute and the 16th minute and the I'm having a shot at Liverpool. Anyway,
best player in the world right now, man. Mo Salah. I think so.
He's great. Guaranteed to milk at least 2 penalties a game. Anyway, they don't come to this club, is what I'm saying. So, the liberalization of sports betting is a thing. Obviously, the Vegas Sportsbook was generating a lot of money for Vegas for a long time. The daily fantasy games were all over everywhere they could put their name for a long time as they sort of got people used to putting money into sports betting. And now it's just straight like, the doors are open. You can bet on 2 flies crawling up a wall. And if you're looking for a tip on that, the second fly is usually the one to go for.
Damn!
So now we've got all these companies that are like, we're going to be the sports betting thing, and we're going to be the esports thing, and we're going to it's all this sort of one big blancmange of promises and potential. But not many companies are really there doing the actual heavy lifting. So I'm going to quickly run through the 4 that we're talking about today. I don't want to get too much in the weeds with it, but all 4 are interesting for different reasons. First, Amped. Amped is a high-performance computing company that allows video rendering, video game hosting, blah, 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 blah. Anything that requires a large amount of compute without it being sucked away by Amazon every time there's a Black Friday sale. These guys are basically doing bespoke high-performance computer hosting for companies that need such a thing, such as Untitled Entertainment that makes a lot of animated movies. What they want is when they press a button and say, render all of our movie, that doesn't sort of get paused because someone else on the same server is doing the same thing and there's no more computing space. So that was the start of their thing. The secondary part of their gig is they've started getting involved in what's called virtual movie production. In the old days, movies would be produced, you'd get a carpenter to bang nails in and build a Wild West town, and then you bring in your actors to Morocco or wherever you're shooting it, and then you'd run back and forth and have to go whenever the sun went down and have to come back the next day or the weather's too bad. Nowadays, instead of that, you can just basically go into a virtual movie production studio, which is the same size as the old sound stages, except the walls, instead of being green screen or a facade that's been created by hand, they're actually LED screens that can go from the floor all the way up the wall and all the way over the top and surrounding the actors. So the old problem of having to scrub out a little bit of green halo from actors because they're standing behind a green screen doesn't happen anymore. Now what you have is in those LED screens, is video game technology, video game engines, creating the background so you can actually see it while it's being shot. The director can say, you know what, can we move that tree a little over there? Can we change the sunshine from over this way to this way? And you know, as the actors run, the background can run with it. The video game engine does all the processing at the time of filming. Instead of having to wait 3 months for the digital artists to go and do their thing, realize that it was all wrong, and having to go back again and shoot the whole banana. How does AMP get into this? They're in the midst of a virtual movie production studio build with partners from China who have a large amount of money and a large amount of content channel that they have to fill. As soon as this production house is built, there's bookings galore for large amounts of money. This is the future of movie production, and it's going to be something where AMP has its servers in the midst of all of this, right? So instant new clients of a much larger nature. It's a big deal, and I realize I've talked way too long about it, but it's one of those deals that takes a bit of discussion. Recently, the company has accelerated on charts. I'll let Vishal go through that. They've raised a bit of money. It's an interesting deal, but it is very much one of those things where in order to get investors interested, they've got to sit through the whole damn production, which is a struggle for any company. All right, moving on to GameOn. GameOn. Now, this is, I'm going to say GameOn.app is what we're calling it, because quite frankly, there's a couple of GameOners out there, and our content creators have been occasionally on the wrong side of that conundrum, much to the company's annoyance. GameOn stock has been pretty up and down. It hasn't really found its niche with the micro cap markets just yet, but it is in that space of creating sort of a, I guess you call it a gap between gaming and sports betting. It's not really sports betting, but what they're about is engagement, right? So they're looking to create apps around reality TV, sports, the stock market, that allow people to interact with what they're watching on a more regular basis. Now, why this is important is because if you get someone interacting with what they're watching, they're not just a fan anymore, they're a participant. They can actually affect what they're watching. They can become part of that content. You're building community, you're building social, and the opportunities are to start roping in advertising and sponsors to that. So, hey, I'm sitting in the place where Rob is sitting right now, only there's people around, and I'm all for the Canucks. And the Canucks app says to me, hey, if you think there's a goal scored in the next period, hit this button, and if it happens, you'll get $5 off a pizza. I'm hitting the button, right? But I'm also engaging with the app, and I'm engaging more with the sponsor, and I'm engaging more with the club. So this is an important thing that, again, as a 5-second pitch is really hard to explain, but as a more nuanced pitch, you start to understand that what these guys are doing is rather than just letting you watch sports, they're bringing you as close as you can get to participating in the production, which I think has a lot of potential there. They've certainly had a bit of success in getting in front of a lot of big companies, DraftKings, Apple, EA Sports, the Harlem Globetrotters, Barcelona FC, Take-Two Interactive, the NBA, like they're all over this thing. Matt Bailey's the CEO, and he's a no-nonsense guy, as we've discovered when we screwed things up. Sorry, Matt. But we're still talking about them because we think that this deal is an interesting one. And quite frankly, at a $16 million market cap right now, that's absurd. The number of partnerships that they have, they're starting to get into NFT games, which to me, I'm still not there on NFTs, but I'm beginning to become convinced that there is a use for them. I'm just not sure that everyone really understands it just yet. So I think that GameOn is interesting. Quickly moving across now to i3 Interactive, BETS, on the markets. Look, these guys have been going out and acquiring some companies, but their start in the markets was littered with problems. The biggest problem being that, how do we say this without naming someone personally? Well, if you can read the most recent news to figure it out. These guys got involved with someone who is a big name on the social media scene, and the business model was basically he's going to bring millions of followers to us, so we're going to key him in, open a bunch of different betting operations that are sort of focused around him, and hope that people get really into it and start jumping in. The problem is that Dan Bilzerian is a bit of a twat, and eventually working with him seemed to be not quite a good thing. So the companies have been involved in litigation. It's been kind of tied up a little bit. Here's the thing: once they get through that litigation, which I'm sure they will soon, and once the trading is resumed, which I'm sure it will be soon, and we hear on the grapevine that that is actually going to happen, there'll be a lot of people who wanted to get out of BETS and haven't been able to because the trading's been halted. So you might have some rough times for the stock. That will be an opportunity for those people with a longer range plan. These guys are doing a lot of deals in India, working with companies that are involved in the gaming space, the gambling space, sports space, and they've got. Let's just say that their engine has been revving for a long time, but they haven't been allowed to put it into gear for a number of reasons. When they're allowed to put it into gear, I expect that there will be a flurry of news quickly, and that it will be on this company to demonstrate that the mistakes of early, which there were plenty, are no longer the mistakes of the now. If they can do that, this thing will be a rubber band. It will move quickly, and I would think that market cap will find some acceleration. Lastly, certainly not least, FansUnite, ticker symbol FANS. FansUnite is a sports gambling, esports gambling, and gambling tools for B2B company that has done reasonably well in the markets, did really well for a while. They jumped up to 230, raised a bunch of money, and then folks started taking their profits. Right now is really at a low. That's not because fundamentals are bad necessarily. It's because it had such a heck of a run that realistically it's come back to where it should probably have been. The company is still talking about acquisitions. They are taking American Affiliate for $58 million, according to news. They are supplying gaming tools to a variety of different groups. Their pickup of Pepper, which was an esports tournament company, has been actually, sorry, did they pick up Pepper? I may be confusing. I'm just going to wipe that out. They're generally speaking, though, they've raised a bunch of money. They've got a bunch of groups. Yeah, they got Pepper. So they're doing business in a lot of fronts. Internationally, they've got McBookie, which is a Scottish sports betting group. And man, money's coming in. The problem is that this company ran so hard and got to such a valuation that it had to come back. And I'm happy for them as someone who was bought in early that happened. But I will say that I got out, I cashed in, because when the gods bring profits to you, the only way to make them happy is to take those profits. Now the company's at a place where realistically it's time to jump back in. You do not, honestly, if you look at this company and the amount of things that are in it, and you look at where the share price is, I can't imagine that this thing goes down lower than the 41.5 cents. If it does, then throw myself on the casket and I will throw all my money at it. FansUnite is. I should actually clarify that we have an investment in Altrincham Football Club in the UK. FansUnite CEO Scott Burton also has an investment in that. So, and they're a client company, so there's a bit of conflict here. But I'm being straight up when I say that this thing had to come down in valuation. It was way too overvalued. It lost a couple of $1 million in the last quarter, but it is growing exponentially. And as sports betting changes in Canada and liberalizes, these guys are going to be right up front and center for it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Very good. Galen, you're going to provide an interlude before we go to the charts.
Oh, sure. Why not? All right. So why don't we shift gears a little bit and then back right on up to the initial company, Amped. I like what they got going on. They're sort of the hardware development end of edge computing. and have a lot of great potential that way, and are cutting all sorts of really good deals. They're getting into virtual or augmented reality now, I believe, or is the metaverse, I guess you could call it. They're making forays into that, and it's a perfect company for doing that since they're already doing the virtual studios, also doing the video game rendering and movie rendering for special effects, and then also doing esports and everything. They got their fingers in all sorts of pies. Now, one might look at that and go, holy shit, they're spread way too thin, but they have the hardware, the competence, and the diversity to be able to accomplish that. So what I look at it as is a very sort of safe, diversified portfolio that will soon bring, I think, some really interesting news coming this year. So I'm excited about AMP. Now, I don't know whether the company has any shares. I believe Chris might have shares in the company.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, there we go. So we just want to make that clear.
We should clarify that.
Yeah.
Also, while I'm clarifying, FansUnite didn't buy Pepper. They bought Ascot Entertainment, but they did business with the gaming stadium, which did buy Pepper.
There you go. There you go. So I'm excited about AMP. I think they've got good leadership, very technically oriented. These guys really know what they're doing. They've been in the market for years. They've been in the industry for years. It's not just a couple of accountants doing a roll up. They understand what's going on and where they need to go, and they have a vision. So interesting company. I definitely back them. Next company I want to talk about is, let me see. Let's hit i3 Interactive. Why not? i3 Interactive, for me, is problematic. There's a shit ton of shares out. It's over 200 million. They've capsized a deal, at least it looks like it, in India. I don't know what's going to come of that. That was an acquisition of the target, which from what I can read, because it's legalese, it looks like it's pitted out. So they're currently looking for options. They do have litigation going on right now with this Dan Blazarian guy, who, from what Chris says, is a bit of an asshole. So
oh my God, just Google him. It's like, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, still, regardless, that's legal proceedings. It's always a hot potato for any company, regardless of where you stand on the fence. Or in blame and all that kind of lovely stuff. They still have to work their way through this, and they have to find their footing after the fact. They are making a good entry into the Indian market. They've got cricket covered, which is like one of the biggest sports on the planet. They're also doing kabaddi, which I've never seen before. It's actually kind of interesting. Yeah, you got like 7 guys aside, and it's a tag, but like with tackling. It's an interesting concept. So
it's like pro wrestling with rugby.
Yeah, see, there you go. So they've got their feet in a particular area that I don't think there's a lot of awareness of, which is kind of neat because it means they corner that market. Where they go from here, that's the big question. And as I said, I'm not really hyped on the company in a sense because of the amount of shares that are out. When you get over 100 million, I start to get a little antsy. So I would like to see them just do something to clear that up, either by a really big revenue deal or just start rolling it back, kids. Let's make this thing, where it should be. But, that's for them to decide and for the investors to decide upon whether they have interest or not. But that's my trepidations with that company. Now, moving on to... let's go on to FansUnite just for a quick moment. FansUnite is an interesting prospect. They've got business to customer and also business to business deals that they can offer in the form of doing online gambling. They've got McBookie in Scotland. They've got Ascot Gaming going on. They've got all sorts of interesting deals in play, but they still have yet to make traction in what they're doing. And as Chris said, yes, they had a really hard run and are sort of having difficulty kind of supporting the capitalization that they reached. And so I think at this point, 2022 might be a very interesting year for them. Unfortunately, with iGaming and online gambling, it's all heavily dependent on government legislation, and regulation, and which is always kind of dicey because you never know where people are going to go. But they do have their fingers in enough pies and enough money-making opportunities right now that I think that they will be a ongoing concern. I like them. In the end, GameOn Entertainment Technologies, make sure to get that right, is also an interesting prospect, mostly because for me, they serve an industry that is trying to catch up with the digital age. This means broadcast television, sports broadcasting, all the classical forms of medium that now have to compete with what has gone on in the digital world, which is already the gamification of what happens. So for, Housewives of the Potomac, I can't remember which episode or which series it did, they provided a gamification aspect for that series to allow the super fans to connect more, as Chris said, with the product, with the broadcaster, with the advertiser. These are the things that really need to drive that industry. I mean, in some ways, we're coming full circle in digital streaming, people getting turned on by the idea of the weekly drop. Isn't that an interesting aspect to keep people hooked? Oh, shit, really? Episodic? How did that work? So I think there's going to be a return in some senses to the old formats, but still the interactive capabilities is what really needs to be stepped up. And GameOn Entertainment Technologies offers that and can provide benefits for the users. And they don't necessarily provide gambling. This is like prize play. This is something that increases engagement. And so they don't have to stick in just one specific area with sports or anything like that. They can go into politics. They can go into anything, really, and provide some sort of engagement experience for people. So there's a real big prospect for them to do that. They've got some good deals already on the go. I like the prospect, and I like the industry that they're heading in. They're not dependent on gambling regulations. They can merrily head off into whatever sector they like. There's my input.
Very nice.
It's really easy for people to sort of switch over that line from gaming into believing that that's a catch-all for gambling. It's not. It's often referred to as gaming by the gambling companies because it can be problematic legally for them to talk about. Let's say FansUnite is providing blackjack services or software for another company. They're a gaming company. They're not a gambling company, right? But they're still associated with gambling. So this is why this sector is a bit confusing for a lot of people, because those who are into esports often will talk about the potential for gambling in esports. We'll talk about the potential for gaming, and it gets all over the place. But Game On is very specifically looking at engagement rather than taking my money on betting against Mosal.
Yep.
Terminology situation. GameOn Entertainment Technologies and others. I can't believe Galen, by the way, bet on the first fly.
I'm a sucker, man. I'm the guy that picks the middle cup on the fucking 3-card Monty.
All right. And Michelle, instead of hammering the charts of the individuals, which we can look at the individuals, let's put this in the context of the sector.
Yeah. I mean, we are going to look at a few of the companies here. Again, all of them are red today. I don't think it's just a sector thing per se right now, although, as Chris mentioned, a few of the companies here did have huge run-ups earlier this year, and, profit taking and all that kind of stuff is expected. But I think, like, overall, just like the broader market condition right now, we're heading into a Fed meeting. It's December, tax losses, but also, again, I'm putting a bit more emphasis on tomorrow's meeting. I think a lot of people tend to stay away from the small caps and even the large caps right now until that meeting takes place. So when I look at a few of these charts, we're going to be seeing basically all three of the companies, and I won't talk about i3 because, as Chris mentioned, it is halted. The last candle we have is actually from April 9th. It looked good back in February when we had that breakout after a nice basing. And if this did reopen tomorrow, it's probably not going to be around this 39-cent zone where it closed in April. It's probably going to be significantly lower. Just tends to happen when these stocks do resume trading. So let's just take a look at AMP, GameOn, and FansUnite. We've covered AMP a few times on the show. My trend lines are still here. My support and resistance levels are still here. If I remember correctly, we called out this breakout of this triangle on a show. We called out this breakout here at 27.5 cents on one of the shows. And then just recently, we talked about how successful these two calls were and how we're at a very big resistance zone here. And, considering how other things and other macro stocks and even the small cap stocks have been selling off, AMP is holding up relatively well in comparison. And I have this trend line here going down to the bottom the lows here of August, connecting these basically higher lows, as we like to call them. And you can see the slope is still upward. So we are technically still in an upwards trend. And we're quite close actually to the trend line here at 40 cents. So if anyone was looking to enter a position, riding the uptrend, this is a good area where you could do so. If we did get a close below this trend line, that's when things get a bit shaky technically. But as Chris and Galen both mentioned, long term, this company has a lot going for it, and the management there is doing a good job. So I think out of the bunch, this is one technically holding up well. A lot of interest is, in the company. The shares do trade quite. A significant amount of shares are traded every day, so it's not like you see low volume on it. And the technicals are looking quite good here. GameOn. So we'll take a look at GameOn, and before I mention that, ignore most of this chart. Just look at the chart from the beginning of June, onwards. I have the chart open here on Yahoo Finance just to show you guys a bit better, but basically the stock's been ranging since July here, and unfortunately we're at the bottom limits of that range. I say unfortunately, but maybe some people are saying no, this is the best time to buy, because when you are at that bottom of a range, before the company, if the company does break down from here, we're basically printing record lows. We have a low here set at what was that record low level is 22.5 cents. I believe, 22.5 cents is the all-time record low on GameOn Entertainment. If you do get it, we're at 25 cents right now, which is also an important psychological zone. But you can see the range quite clearly, a rectangle here. We have our support, we have our resistance. We just have a pretty, the daily close today isn't the best. It is quite deep, and it is taking out basically all these bodies here. So I would say that this is actually a new record close or low close on the stock, because the candle body is below all these bodies going back to the beginning when the stock IPOs. So tomorrow's going to be a big day for GameOn. Obviously, you want to see buyers step in and get the stock propped. And if we do see that, then there is a chance that this is now just a range trade, and the buyers have stopped basically a breakdown. So I think this is one of interest to watch if you want to act on something, as soon as possible. But alternatively, if tomorrow's daily close is quite weak, we're talking new record lows on GameOn Entertainment. So let's see if it holds that range tomorrow, or if we do break down, one that will see a lot of action. And then finally, let's look at FansUnite. And as Chris mentioned, the company had quite the 2021. Hitting highs of $2.37 to be exact, and now we're trading at 41.5 cents. And as Chris mentioned, looks like a really good zone here. If I do zoom out on the chart, you can see that this was actually a support and resistance zone in the past, or what I call a flip zone. So GameOn and FansUnite, major support levels, and it's going to be a big price action day, big trading day for both of these companies tomorrow. And if you're bullish, this is a good area that you would accumulate shares. But really, what I would like to see is a sign of buying, right? So hopefully we get a nice green candle tomorrow on all of these companies, specifically the Fans and GameOn, which are at support levels, and see nice volume indicating signs of buying.
I want to zip around the horn here, because it's interesting how, some of these have dipped, as you just pointed out. So do we jump in with both feet? $7,500, Chris Perry.
So if we start off with Fans, I'm looking at today's chart, which shows me that someone decided that they wanted to get out of this position, but other people were happy to buy up to 40 cents. As much as was on offer all day long, 40 cents, they were having it. So, one door opens, another one closes. I think that today we're obviously a lot of people unsettled about inflation, unsettled about what the Fed's going to do. Anything that's a sin stock is going to take a bit of a hit on that. People are going to try and find safety, and sports betting isn't necessarily the safety. So I get why this thing over the last 48 hours has taken a bit of a leak. But I think long term, whatever is happening today is going to be a lot less relevant than the growth of this over the long term. They've got a lot of activity on the acquisition front. And I just don't really feel like at this price that this is a hard ask to buy into. So acknowledging the conflicts, acknowledging the connections between the companies, and that we think the guys at FansUnite are good guys. I also think this is a really good time to start looking to buy in. So if you're 7,500, I'd probably put about 3 on this one. I think that'd be a decent bet, not to get too on the nose with the terminology. If we're looking at GameOn, it's the same deal. Now, what's interesting about GameOn to me is they've got a big investment from the Times of India, where and I've a little bit of experience around the Indian news scene back in my days at the Vancouver Sun. One thing I'm going to tell you about cricket is it is the perfect betting sport, because unlike, let's say, soccer, where the action is end to end, basketball, where it's end to end, in order to bet on who's going to score the next goal, you've got to be real quick. Cricket, it can be like a minute between bowls. So someone hits the ball, they score a certain number of runs, you got a minute to figure out what's going to happen next. It is the perfect sport. Now, because of that, cricket has been kind of scarred by betting scandals. But if you're betting on, let's say, if you're investing in a sport or an area of the world where gaming and betting technology is really going to take root, I think India is the place. So that investment is interesting to me. That also goes across to i3 Interactive, who have a little bit of activity on the Indian side too. I think that these are interesting deals. The European betting space is glutted. The American betting space is glutted and broken up into different rules for different states. But the Indian scene, there is a ton of population there, and it's all new, right? So you've got a lot of groups that are acquiring users and dropping technology that are available to buy for not a lot of money. So I think that GameOn's connection to India is interesting. I think their stock chart is terrible, but I can't see it staying there very long. I would be maybe waiting until tax loss season is over, and then I'd maybe put another couple of K of your 7,500 into that. i3 Brands, we can't put anything into that because it's halted, but I'd be looking for it to get unhalted, to take a quick dip as people claim their money back after an extensive halt. And it's a brand new show from that point forward. And then we have Amped. Man, Amped is a really nice story right now. Like, I do worry about some of the people who've been acquiring it, their reputation for maybe not hanging in for the long haul, but you can't argue with the action on the price. It has a tendency to jump high at any mention of the metaverse, which is good because that's in the zeitgeist right now. And it does sell off a little bit in the month following. It's done that every time for the last 4 months. So knowing that, if it does go for a bit of a sell-off for an extended period, good time to jump in, hold on to your ankles, and wait for that big jump that comes. Generally speaking, it's come at the beginning of each month. So I don't know if there's anything to follow there trend-wise, but we are sitting on a big old bunch of this stock that we acquired all the way down to 15 cents. So we're doing great, and no plans to get out of it, because this is a company that just for mine is doing the long haul stuff to create a company that will one day be a behemoth. Right now, people don't understand it, but as revenues increase, as the deals continue to flow, and as the company demonstrates its worth, I think that the current $34 million market cap is going to look like an absolute pittance. I'm a buyer at this price and probably going up to 60 to 70 cents.
All right. I like it. Galen, by the way, if my battery just turns off my computer, you're going to be saying goodbye for us. But before that happens, I'm deep in the red. Hopefully that's not the case with the stocks.
It's too much time on plenty of fish.
How much you spending?
Well, it's an interesting prospect. Unfortunately, because of all the uncertainty right now in the market, the way the economy is heading, inflation, well, that too, on the increase, I don't think that there is a good moment right now to get into stocks such as these. I think it's possibly better for me to wait until the beginning of the new year. So we see where the Fed is actually sitting, how the actual inflation is going to shape up the economy for the coming year, and where we sit geopolitically as well, which is another big problem. So I'm gonna stay on the fence for right now. I think this sector is interesting. I think it has a lot of potential, but I'm going to watch it for right now.
$0, Vishal. We got sort of two streams. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm echoing Galen there in terms of, I would wait for probably January for entering some of these positions. However, I do got to say, when that January does come around, AMPed is one I really like, and I hope this uptrend is still intact. I would be looking to put around 3K in AMPed. Fans, it is a tricky one because, we have all this market high volatile risk events coming up, but it is at a very big support zone. I mean, I can say the same with GameOn. So I would be watching both GameOn and Fans just to see if we can actually print some sort of nice green body candle. And if we can do that, I might be tempted to buy before January, but we would need to have a nice green candle with good volume. And I think I would be putting 2K each in Fans and GameOn if I get that signal. So right now, it's all dependent on what the technicals are telling me, and if we can get through this high risk volatile week without seeing more drops here.
So Vishal, you're saying that if GameOn Entertainment Technologies does well, you're going to get some stock?
If it does get a nice, I guess.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that.
He missed it. He was going with a serious answer.
I caught it now, though.
AMPed, BETS, which is i3 Interactive, GameOn Entertainment Technologies, damn it, and FansUnite. There's your four. Nicely handled, gentlemen. And
just to clarify before we go, I realized that I mentioned India and cricket betting and then said GameOn is good because it's in that space. GameOn doesn't do betting, but in the same sort of mindset of like, we've got some time to kill between bowls. Let's get the app open and start betting on who's going to, picking who's going to do something next. It's ready-made sport for what they do. It's ready-made sport for gambling, but also gaming, the stuff that happens in the middle. I can tell you from experience in Australia on New Year's, sitting for 5 days in the sunshine for 6 hours a day, drinking beer after beer until my stack of cups is like this long. There's a lot of time spent between action in cricket. And apps and betting.
Love those test matches.
Test 5 days, and then you don't even get a result in the end. It's a draw.
But you see how easy it is to fall terminology-wise from one into the other.
It's real easy. And, apologies to GameOn if there was any reflection that they take as me saying they're a gambling app.
We can't guarantee results. Past performance cannot guarantee future performance. So please do your own homework, do your own research. We can guarantee absolutely nothing by what we've said today or what we have shown you. So get after it. But we hope you've enjoyed this presentation. It is the Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.